Hello, and welcome back to another video version of one of my Substack essays. Again, we're recording live on Twitch, so I'm going to say hello to the people who are actually here. Hi, Slime Mage. Yes, who up theft in they time? We be overemployed over here doing content creation on the clock, in theory. Sleepy Lily 101 got the email about the stream on time for once. Welcome. Yeah, I know a couple of people last week liked that it was like lunchtime, so I was like, oh shit, I finished my workout. I should go over here and knock this shit out, doing that first instead of going to the grocery store. Waluigi Bowser, good to see ya. As always, hope you had a good nap. Hi, Maddie. Please don't yell at me for anything that goes fucked on the stream. Good afternoon. Good to see you. Hi, Eternity Box. Maddie, I also just finished updating Genshin Impact. So if you want to play that, I need to make my account or try to recover my old account that I lost in the divorce. But I updated that fucking thing. Hello, Eternity Box. Hey, everybody. How's it going? We're here today to talk about digital censorship of queer content on the internet. We're going to be reading aloud my piece, How to Survive a Queer Kink Libricide, which is all about the removal of queer content as NSFW and all erotic content or adult tagged content being delisted on itch.io. For those who don't know, that is an indie gaming platform where a lot of very artisanally made, small creator made games are listed. People put tabletop game rule books on there, so like Dungeons and Dragons for people who don't know what TTRPGs are. Just rule books for like playing pretend with your friends, playing pretend games with your friends are hosted on there. People put books on there, like games that are like small kind of fun novelty games like Newgrounds used to be back in the day, as well as way more ambitious indie games. Mouthwashing got taken down. What the fuck? That's awful. That's such bullshit. Like, that's just a horror game. Like, the grounds on that these deletions are being based on is just totally fucking ridiculous. Sleepy Lily says, that's where my college capstone lives. Or lived. Fuck. I'm sorry. As we'll talk about today, archiving this stuff, doing everything you can to archive this stuff is so important right now. And people who have made games and hosted things on itch, like, please put any info in the chat about that, or the best ways to archive it if you know anything other than just fucking downloading the files, because that's what I've seen. And like, I've linked in my piece to a subreddit thread where people are talking a little bit about how to download and archive itch games. But any other additional pointers or things we should know from people on the development side about that, let me know. Waluigi Basler says, oh, I don't want to see straight neurotypical kinky stuff. Yuck. Oh, well, we are very pro straight neurotypical kinky people here. Like the wackest of the whack, the most troubling of the troubling. Like, lay it on me. I mean, I don't know. I watch a lot of straight porn, but so sue me. Let them have their fun. And as we'll see, there's a lot of people encompassed in this umbrella of who is under attack right now, right? Like, it is sex workers, right? Every sex worker who does any aspect of their business online, which is most of them, is under attack right now. And a lot of them serve a predominantly straight clientele. So if you fuck with sex workers, you kind of have to fuck with their ability to access the straight clientele that they make their money from in on their own terms, in as safe a way as possible. So people who are making straight porn, we must unfortunately ride with straights. I don't actually think it's unfortunate, but just for the sake of the joke. And polyamorous people too, right? That used to be a big subject of debate on Tumblr. Are polyamorous people who are straight oppressed? Does polyamory fall under the queer umbrella? Da 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 da. As we will see today and talk about. I'll be reading a comment from my friend James Finn, the writer, on Medium. Medium is now like shadow banning all content about polyamory. So in much the same way that it is, non-binary people are being attacked in terms of like legal records and being able to have their gender on their IDs or being singled out. Polyamorous people are also being targeted by some of these waves of censorship. So who has the target on their back is, well, it's a pretty wide umbrella of anybody deviating from the like cishet allo monogamous norm. I forgot the word monogamous for a second there. Hello, Spooky Zoe, who said, I wanted to pop in and say I've been reading your book, Unmasking Autism. It helped me come to terms with my autism and take the steps to unmask as a biology grad student. Thank you so much for your work. Oh, thank you, Zoe. I hope they are treating you right in grad school. It's hard to be openly neurodivergent in grad school. And it's such a mindfuck too, because I think many of us go into academia thinking it's going to be a place that's accepting of difference, where you can be an eccentric professor type. That's certainly part of why I thought academia would be for me. And then finding out that that was not the case was very disillusioning and upsetting. So I hope that you're having a good experience. I think the sciences are a little bit better. The harder the science is, the better they are, I think, a little bit with tolerating, maybe not accepting neurodivergence, but psychology was pretty fucking bad. There was a bisexual erasure from the government not too long ago. No, I'm not sure what you're referencing, but I would imagine it's like Department of Health research or something like that. Sorry, just the phrasing was funny to me. Like, the government's doing bisexual erasure. I'm sure they are, but I might have missed that one. So today we'll be reading through the article. If you're an Instagram person, you might have seen a micro version of the article get published in story blasts last week on like Thursday or Friday when the news broke about the deletion from Itch. I think it was Thursday. And then I padded it out a little bit, added some more sources and links, threw that thing up on Substack, and it also got shadow banned on Medium, which is not something I would know or care about because I don't look at metrics. But my friend James Finn, and I'll read his comment later, he hopped online and I guess was probably manually checking his favorite writers' pieces because he knows he's more plugged in to Medium.com's developments than I am these days. So he knows that this censorship has been going on. So he just happened to check my profile and see that I had published something. And he let me know, like, oh, yeah, this article has been delisted. So it's not findable if you go on the usual like equality, LGBTQ, sex tags that I use on Medium. And my email subscribers also didn't get the piece, apparently, emailed to them. So cool stuff happening. Slime Mage asks, is there a term for a window of queerness or deviance? No. Not that I know of. But I'm I studied this shit on Tumblr.com. I didn't take any queer studies classes. It feels to have shifted like the Overton window. I mean, I think, that polyamorous people were always under the queer umbrella, even no matter how annoying a straight one can be, that they have always been structurally discriminated and against and treated as hypersexual in the same way that like queer men are hypersexualized as a way to, demonize them and other them. I think it's just getting more obvious to people now that some of these communities are actually targeted. Thank you for the follow, maybe Denka. Like, we are past the point, I hope, of like fighting about like asexual people not ever being oppressed and non-binary people not ever being oppressed, because we see it structurally now. And so I think it would probably, because I already do this with neuroconformity, I would think about it in terms of just the extent to which a person can conform to cisness and heterosexuality, that some people can conform to those norms better than others and disappear under it better than others, but they're still structurally oppressed. Like I mean, if you're bisexual and you're a bisexual woman Now we're really getting into the fucking weeds. Oh no. But like, let's say you're a bisexual woman and you pursue relationships with men and you marry a man because being gay is illegal and socially frowned upon and socially punished. Like, I think that's still, you've lost something major. Like, you are not as subject to violence as a lesbian couple is. But I think killing that part of yourself in order to conform is obviously a really negative experience, and it is a loss. And so I think, straight polyamorous people, kinky people, asexual people, some of these people that like get seen sometimes as suffering less, like while there is a legitimate point to make there about the privileges they have in how they can move through society, like, no, yeah, they were definitely oppressed. That's why they're hiding what they are. Like, that's, they can hide, but they're still oppressed, just in the same way that, like, masked autistics are still oppressed. We have privileges that those who can't mask do not have, but, like, we're still autistic. But that's how I see it. Kaordi said, extremely mad that Itch did that just days after the Toxic Yuri game jam ended. Oh, I heard about that. If you have any favorite Toxic Yuri games that are still up on there, please hit the links, put them in the chat. If you have any porn games on Itch that you like, put them in the chat. I can't open them here right now, but I want to have them. I have a list of a few of my favorites in the Substack article, and I'd love to just include more porn game links for people to just know they're there, archive them, treasure them while we have them on that site. Not to blow up the spot or anything. Yeah, so let's dive on into it, I think, unless anybody else has any other breaking news on queer censorship on the internet that they feel like speaking to right now. It's all happening so fast. It's hard to keep up with all of it. All right, I will go to screen share mode. I don't know if the stream is lagging on my own terms or if it's Devin's internet. Oh yeah, can anybody else speak to that? How's the connection speed? How's the sound and everything? I think I have everything closed. That should be a bandwidth hog or RAM hog. We did have a bunch of storms here, though, so that always fucks with my Xfinity wireless. God damn it. So hopefully it's all right. Anyone? Any other complaints about the internet? And if you're on mobile, it's just mobile sucks, so I will take no responsibility. I've been buffering a little, but only for a few seconds at a time. Okay, not ideal. That is not ideal. If things get worse, let me know. I've had a little stream instability on an Android TV. Okay. Shit. Good to know. Good to know. Let's see if I can close anything out. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kaordi, DJ Dion. Good to see DJ on Dion. Let me know if it gets worse. I think we'll press on for now. And if I need to restart or something, we'll do it. There was one huge cloud sitting over us, but now it's sunny again. Yes. Oh, are you in Chicago, Sleepy Lily? Yes. In fact, my stream lighting is about to get better. Let me open the curtains a little bit. All right. For those who have not read it and would like to, or would like to access the links in here, you can read this piece for free at drdevinprice.substack.com. I will also throw it in the Twitch chat right now. Yes, I know the guts of my stream is showing right now. Fuck it, we ball. I'll just throw this thing in here and pin it for those who haven't read it or you want to follow along. And then I'll just read it on aloud to you. How to survive a queer kink Libricide. As Steam and itch.io join the mass purge of LGBTQ content, we must document our past and ensure a shared future. The opening image for this piece is a book that's laid open on what looks like kind of a concrete or like slate ground, and it is on fire. Some of the pages are blackening and turning in the wind, and there's kind of a plume of fire moving up from the book. And that is by Freddie Kearney on Unsplash. Lots of good book burning stock images on Unsplash, which was much appreciated. In the middle of the night on July 24th, indie game distributor itch.io quietly delisted all NSFW games from its site. Any game on the platform that has been tagged as containing objectionable or adult content, which, to be clear, is a huge segment of the site's library, is no longer findable on search, and reportedly, some NSFW games have already been completely deleted from the platform and even removed from the libraries of users who have purchased them. And here is a link to a Reddit thread on PC Gaming talking about the shadow ban, and people are discussing some of the games that they've noticed. It's a very active thread, as you can see here, over 1,000 comments. So people have mentioned some of the games that they've noticed are missing just as of that day. And it was, I think it was like 2 a.m. Central Standard Time, something like that, when games were deleted. So quietly in the middle of the night. This mass erasure of predominantly queer erotic art comes thanks to the efforts of Collective Shout, an Australia-based anti-porn, trans-exclusionary group that also recently succeeded in getting nearly all NSFW content removed from the most popular and widely used PC gaming platform, Steam. And one of the links here is talking about Collective Shout's turf allegiances. The founder of Collective Shout is very much in bed with a lot of radical transphobic, transmisogynist groups. So that is definitely a piece of its ideology, and opposition to sex work and sex workers, opposition to porn on supposedly radical feminist lines, but that wants to see like all porn eradicated. That almost always is in bed with TERF ideology. These things are almost always linked. There's a big difference between being critical of like sexism and abuse in various industries and saying these things should be banned outright. The very existence of like erotic art is wrong. That invariably goes into a queerphobic and transphobic place. To mount their attack on erotic content on itch.io, Collective Shout turned its focus on a game called No Mercy, which featured themes of non-consensual sex and incest. In their rhetoric more generally, Collective Shout often highlights the NSFW games with material that the public is most likely to find discomforting, depictions of sexual assault, abuse, paraphilias, and hard kinks. So whether or not the game is erotic, even if it just features erotic violence, actually now I'm realizing that maybe that's why mouthwashing got removed. Do you know, Maddie? Does anybody know? Mouthwashing is not an erotic game, right? It is not a porn game. If you're interested in the game, Maddie and I streamed it together. You can watch an archive of the stream on the YouTube. And it features discussions of sexual violence. Hope that's not too much of a spoiler to say, but it does not depict anything, and it certainly does not endorse anything. So those are some of the types of things sometimes that Collective Shout is targeting. No Mercy is very much, from everything I've heard about it, like it's an extreme game. It's got extreme kinks. In the same way that, we like watching horrible murders and maimings in horror movies. Sometimes we like fictional media that features sexual assault and incest and abuse. And that stuff can be fun. Playing pretend is always fine. But in their rhetoric, Collective Shout is not distinguishing between something that is showing those forms of kink content to titillate and those that are showing it even when you look at the text, it's clearly not any kind of even fantasy endorsement. Like, even in the narrative, it's bad. I don't know why for sure, but I'm sure it's for the themes of sexual assault. That's all I can think of, because otherwise, mouthwashing is indistinguishable from most horror games. It's just a horror game. So I that's that's fucking wild though. Like it because that game talks about sexual violence in such a delicate and veiled way, and it's mostly talking about complicity in sexual violence. Like it's not even showing it. Like it barely even says it. It mostly implies it. So that's really a blunt instrument if they're getting rid of games that just acknowledge the existence of sexual assault. It's fucking nuts. Though things like rape and abuse are real elements of life that many artists have personal experience with and feel moved to include in their work, anti-porn advocacy groups like Collective Shout use the public's unease with such material as a wedge, driving forward the argument that certain subjects are simply too perverse to be acknowledged, even in fiction. Keep in mind that a large number of the games listed on itch.io are simply rulebooks for tabletop role-playing games. Literally tools for playing pretend with your friends. So some of that stuff that's being deleted isn't even a depiction. It's like a book for how to play pretend tabletop in a grimdark world where maybe like violence or sexual violence happens. It's just like ridiculous how like encompassing this censorship is. Like I think people who are not in this world, like probably most of us here, like people hear, oh, porn games that feature rape are getting deleted, and they think it's like all of these like disgusting, in their mind, like rape simulator games that are very misogynistic and things like that. And to be clear, I don't think that shit should be deleted either. These things should, art should be contended with, art should exist. I think people should be allowed to make distasteful art and art that I don't like, or art that is disturbing, and often it's hard to tease apart what the intent of a creator is, and so that art should still exist even if some of us find it disturbing or distasteful. And also, porn games are a huge umbrella, which includes a lot of things that are basically romance novels and dating simulators that are very wholesome, as well as just celebrations of people's kinks that can be sometimes about gruesome shit. But that's art. It's beautiful. It's important. So not to get into respectability politics on it, because like all of that stuff should be there. Slime Mage says, I'm always so curious about the people who ban disturbing content and then in the process ban meaningful art about difficult topics. Do they truly believe that any engagement with difficult topics is damaging? I think they're acting out of emotion. I think they're saying that makes me uncomfortable and I don't want to see it, and I want it to not exist. Like they don't want to have to think about it. They don't want to have to look at it. And so they are acting out of that emotional like purge desire. I don't think they're thinking about some kind of larger, unless they are like a member of a hate group like Collective Shout. Like a lot of people who are in favor of that kind of censorship, they're not thinking through any kind of long-term political consequence. They don't have an ideology, right? Like that's something I always reorient myself back to. Most people do not have a political ideology. They do not have a theory of how all of their emotional reactions to things and their desires fit together. And they want what they want. They don't really think through, okay, if I have the power to say that some media can't exist or should not exist, what will making that power available to others do for my society, right? They are not thinking, oh, what's going to happen if the government has the right to decide what's disturbing content. They don't have an ideology to organize that kind of thinking. They are just thinking, ew, gross, disgusting, wrong, reminds me of something horrible that happened to me, reminds me of something that I never want to have happen to me, makes me feel uncomfortable because I'm homophobic, whatever it is, should not exist. I want to be in a world where that does not exist, and they don't like think through the consequences of that. That's what I think is going on for like just your normal pro censorship stance from like your average person. Just knowing what we know about most people not having political ideologies, or like greater ideals that they stick to. Maddie just said, Moot just posted on Twitter, current state of censorship on Steam, feminist horror game Vile is being pulled for implied, is that sexual content, because Kara used photos of herself for the game's main character. Oh my god. Uh, and is Kara, is she trans? I'm assuming that's the implication there, that like a depiction of a trans woman is inherently sexual. Because I know that's happened on Tumblr a lot. And Tumblr sometimes just posting a selfie of yourself in clothing as a trans woman or as a fat person will get flagged as sexual content, because those types of bodies are seen as inherently sexual and to be hidden away. NDSR says, I think a lot of censors do believe any engagement is damaging. Think conservative Christians trying to enforce their standards as community standards. Yeah, I do think that is true. I think like evangelical Christians, they do have an ideology, and that ideology is to hide away information about this stuff from other people because they believe that it will corrupt people, right? Like a lot of hardcore evangelical Christians believe that it is wrong for kids to learn about queerness because then kids are more likely to become queer, to realize they're queer, however you want to put it. So I think that is true when it comes to like having a ideological motivation to hide information from the public. They want the world to look like the world they have constructed for themselves and their families. That's why they're against public schooling and want people to be homeschooled in a religious environment only, right? Like they want to limit everyone's access to those things because they think, kind of correctly, that when people have access to information, they're more likely to deviate from that one life path. Like it's all about control and isolation, and isolating the family, isolating children within a family, and then isolating other people from access to information. So yeah, I do think it is a part of it in that respect, for sure. Once the public has bought into the idea that merely talking about or imagining sexual violence is as dangerous as sexual violence itself, it's not much of a logical jump to claim that ever talking or writing about sex is the same thing as sexually exposing children, and therefore demanding that all material that's even remotely sexually suggestive be hidden to protect the impressionable and traumatized. Maddie says about the game Vile, I think it's more specifically that it was sex with a real person because the dev used pics of herself as the main character and they imply sex off screen. Okay. That's still fucking buck wild. Like the chain of logic that hinges on is so wild. Oh no, you're good. You are good. And sorry if my stream has got a big delay. I hope the connection quality is decent now. It's sex exceptionalism, right? Like sex itself, real sex, is this scary, dangerous thing that must be hidden from public view. And so if you show a real person, even in a vanilla, non-sexual way, and then you imply that they had sex, people are going to think of real, actual sex. There's like actual sex touching the corners of this thing. Even though you can't see it or perceive it, it's like tainted the game. Like that's really how sex exceptionalism works in people's mind. They think that sex has this magical power to taint things if it's anywhere near anything in the public sphere. So if somebody is aroused in public, it doesn't matter how they're behaving, it doesn't matter how private that feeling is, that nobody else is going to know about it, that nobody is hurt by it. You've brought sex into the public environment, and it's evil and dangerous, and so you've tainted that experience. Like, how dare you ever sexually fantasize about a friend, or like be in public in some way where you are quietly, privately aroused, or have sexual content in a work of media where, oh, the sex wasn't simulated, or oh, there's actual members of kinky communities on screen, so this stuff is real to them. Like anything like that is just like, it just scandalizes people because they think they literally have magical thinking about sex. Question about Gen Z Puritanism. Do you think it's real? Is Gen Z really more puritanical than previous generations at the same age? And if so, what explains it? The polling suggests they're more conservative. As a group, they are more conservative than millennials were at that age. And I think a lot of people have theorized about why that is. I think we're in a very reactionary political movement, so that could explain a lot of it. And they've had very little freedom their whole lives. They've had very little privacy their whole lives. And so that has made them, and they've also received a lot of propaganda that tells them the world is full of predators and criminals that are going to hurt them all the time. So I think they were based in this very anxiety giving environment where they were constantly being surveilled and observed and bombarded with social media feedback and mass media feedback telling them to be terrified of strangers and of sex almost everywhere they turned. And they had almost no outlets to really develop agency the way that a lot of us who are older got to do, because there were hours of the day where we could not be reached and we could look up things on the internet and interact with adults and learn about sex and see dead bodies on rotten.com. Like, we could expose ourselves to situations, both digital and interpersonal real life situations, that were tough. And we had bad experiences, many of us, but we also developed resilience from that. And an understanding of the world a little bit. And I think that younger generations in general have had less of that. But I will say that it always strikes me that conversations about generational differences are very classed in ways that people don't acknowledge. That a lot of the generational trends people talk about, differences in parenting, differences in child rearing, were accessible and normalized in middle class and higher families. And so I think if you're looking at people from poorer backgrounds, they don't have necessarily like Ring cameras. They don't necessarily have their parents stalking their internet use or tracking them on their phones, because they might not even have phones. There are still kids that go outside and play with other kids. It's much harder to do now, but it's more likely, I think, in environments where their parents don't have the resources to control them, at the very least. This fits in with censorship. I learned a lot from accessing library books earlier than adults intended, even reading Kurt Vonnegut young, for instance. Yeah, I was reading Stephen King books in elementary school, and like Dean Koontz and falling in love with Hannibal Lecter. And sure, it gave me a hypnosis fetish, but I'm fine. I'm totally normal. Yeah, like having free reign over a library as a kid was so powerful to me, as well as just having free reign over my neighborhood and like getting into situations, But we're in this paradigm now where anything that is suggestive of sex is seen as a violation, because sex is supposed to be hidden away and people are supposed to be protected. Children are supposed to be protected from sex. So even acknowledging it is the same thing as doing it. And that's especially true if it's anything that is queer or sexually violent. And I think that's part of the norm of censorship that we're seeing now. People are so uncomfortable with even seeing anything sexual. Unfortunately, the rampant spread of harsh sexual content bans across the internet and the rise of puritanical homophobia has primed many people to treat sex as exceptional, so loaded with unspeakable power that merely mentioning it can do harm. And here, of course, is the link to my piece on the subject, sex neutrality. Sex is not uniquely sacred or uniquely harmful. It's just a part of life. This is the article where I talk about sex exceptionalism. So if you're curious about that, you can check that out. And under this worldview, queerness is seen as more inherently sexual than straightness and cisgenderism, because being queer requires that you think about and question sexual norms a whole lot, rather than just silently taking society's rules for granted. So this is something I want to take a second to highlight. Queer sexualities are seen as more inherently sexual. Queer bodies and identities are seen as more inherently sexual because under the sex negative, like Christian Puritanism, you're supposed to just do what you're told to do. You're just supposed to fulfill the role that is given to you. And that's, if you were told you're a woman, you're a woman. You need to be a wife and mother. You don't talk about sex except in the context of reproduction. And even then, you talk about it very little, only insofar as you're fulfilling your role. And then, you have your role as a man of like having children and running a family and having power over women. And that's all they want people to know about, and they don't want people to talk or think about sex because thinking about it leads you to questioning these things. It leads you to you realizing there are other ways to have sex and avoid having children if you don't want to have children, to experience pleasure, and that maybe pleasure is part of why people have sex. It's not just about fulfilling your like Lord ordained purpose on earth of reproduction. And it leads to you questioning things about your identity then too. If woman is not just wife and mother in a good Christian household under the dominion of a man, what is a woman? Do you want to be a woman? What makes you feel like a woman? What do you like or dislike about being a woman? It opens up this door to all of these things that they want to limit people from being able to talk about. And so it's a very handy way to demonize all this stuff by saying, it is sexual, it's dangerous, it is inherently sexual to even acknowledge this stuff because it puts sex in my mind, and I live in a world where I never want to think about this stuff and I never want to question it. And I want to create a world where nobody has the ability to think about it and question it because that leads places that go against my worldview and the way I'm trying to organize society. So that's like the Christian ideological approach to this stuff and like the swerf turf approach to it, that they don't want people to get the wrong idea. And then I think among more normie pro-censorship people who have just kind of been basted in this culture war shit all this time, they still are homophobic. They've still internalized this idea that queer people are more sexual than others because they're different, they're deviant, they do all kinds of different forms of sex and present themselves in all kinds of different ways that just make the world feel shaky and uncertain, and they don't want to have to think about it. And so they say it's too sexual, it's not appropriate to be in public. Here is a link that I've written to an article about similar issues and censorship happening online. This is from 2 years ago. Morning Porn on Imgur, Morning Trans and Kinky History. And this is an article about the image hosting site Imgur removing all adult content and all posts made from anonymous accounts in May of 2023. So everything ever posted by an anonymous account was deleted, which is like decades worth of images. And that includes every image post made on Reddit prior to, I can't remember what year, but for many years on Reddit, the way that you hosted images was through Imgur. So if you had a Reddit account, but you didn't have an Imgur account and you were making a photo post, the photos you would upload would be through an anonymous Imgur account. So all of that's gone. Like all of the old Imgur images that people uploaded to Reddit for any reason, sexual or not, historical archival work, pictures of somebody's deck that they built, like just random pictures people uploaded to Reddit, gone because of this purge. Okay. Thanks a lot, Adaptive Battler, but I'm gonna see you out here. I am not liking the direction that's going in. If your question is it okay for porn to have like racially charged aspects? Like, well, how do you want to see it not existing? That's always my question. Like, if something makes you uncomfortable, what route would there possibly be for that not existing anymore? that would be beneficial to artists, sex workers, and so on. So, I think playing pretend is always fine. I think dealing in kink and porn that has aspects that might make some of us uncomfortable is fine. It's something we're gonna have to tolerate. Um, yeah. Um, NSD NDSR says, I'm an archivist and I spend a lot of time and energy trying to explain to people why the internet is forever is a dangerous misunderstanding. So much of the internet has been lost, because we're all relying on these platforms to host everything. And yeah, people really don't realize how much is lost. But it's so acute to me as somebody who's been on the internet since I was a preteen, how much of that culture is gone. And Adaptive Battler, if you're asking the questions you're asking in good faith, then I apologize for banning you. We just get some real nonsense on Twitch, and you just really fucking went for it there. So if you're asking in genuine good faith here, and you like want to have a conversation about like censorship of porn with like racial themes or problematic themes, like I'm very happy to have that conversation. And you can even like create another account and chat. And if it's not something that's like, whoa, this seems like the people that come on Twitch to like try and harass people, if it doesn't sound like that, then the chats can stay. And you can also ask me on my Tumblr, because I am willing to talk about this stuff, but like in a fast-paced stream where I know people come on here saying like transphobic and racist shit, and where I'm having to multitask, like coming out and immediately going like, well, what about race play, is like, okay, I'm a little bit alarmed here. Let's warm up the conversation first. Let's earn some goodwill between each other here. My short answer to the question is any kind of sexual content is fine. People have fantasies. People are allowed to indulge in those fantasies. Playing pretend is fine. Like that's the position. But have a little. I'll read the room a little bit. Let's warm up before we go into that one. Because people say some fucked up shit on twitch.tv. There's some people who come swinging into this chat room and say some fucked up shit. Slime Mage says, I think a lot of people who think they love gay people still hold this view. Attending Pride or visiting a gay bar is a titillating experience for them because they still classify queer people as sexual. It's frustrating. Absolutely. And they want queerness when it's a fun bachelorette party where they're wearing the penis necklaces on their person and they're watching a drag queen who they see as inherently sexual. But because they also see it as inherently sexual, if somebody is too queer in their workplace or around their kids, those same people get uncomfortable. And the hypersexualization of queer people is a big issue. Make no mistake, categorizing any and all pro-queer and pro-trans content as NSFW and getting it removed from the internet is Collective Shout's next step. And it has been the goal for many of the reactionary groups that have pushed to see queer content scrubbed from public schools, national television, and all major social media platforms. And this push comes at a time when numerous online platforms, both adult ones like Grindr and general ones like Reddit, are beginning to require users to submit photo ID and proof of their legal age and identity in order to be able to access their sites. And here is where I will turn to everybody who is European or British in the chat about censorship that's happening EU and UK side of things, because and I know there's some US states where that's happening too, so people who are experiencing that can speak to that. But people are now being required to submit not just a photo of their ID, but of their face to these platforms in order to view any adult content, which is really dangerous. As I say in my next paragraph, given how dangerous being openly queer has rapidly become, asking all social media users to hand over personally identifying information before they can explore or express their queerness is quite the menacing development indeed. So trans people are being targeted by many governments throughout the world. Queer people in general are being targeted. And at the same time, we're being asked to, if we want to explore queerness or express our queerness online, now we have to link that to our government name, our government information, and a current like photo of our face that can be used by AI and face recognition software and handed over to governments. Because we know that social media platforms hand over their data to governments all the fucking time. And they have been doing it since at least the early 2010s. This has been going on. And it's a really troubling situation to be in right now, where not only is it harder to access this really vital information about queerness, which leads to young people being more isolated and easier to control by their parents or their church or what have you, or an abuser. It also means that anyone who does seek that stuff out is having more of a target painted on their back. These are the things that I try to just hammer home for those people who are here watching this now or later, who are uncomfortable with sexual content of some kinds. If you are this like mythical Gen Z Puritan type, like and talk about sex makes you uncomfortable. If you are a survivor of sexual violence and seeing rape depicted in media makes you uncomfortable, and on an emotional level you don't want it to exist, like, those emotional reactions come from a genuine place, but look at where it's leading. Listening to those emotions in the most reactionary way is going to make more queer people unsafe. It's going to expose us to violence. And so you do have to be able to live with things in the world that make you uncomfortable and keep your own counsel and take care of your own boundaries and mental health to deal with that, because destroying it leads to a lot of really dangerous places. Love Bites says, I was one of those isolated kids, presumably, and it almost killed me. Yeah, when people don't get to know what they are, these like kids in these really like controlling, homeschooled, repressive Christian households, they just feel like something's wrong with them. They just feel like they can't be what society expects them to be, and there's no way out. There's no other way to be, and they're defective, and they hate themselves, and they hurt themselves. And that just can happen if you're just living in a small town. If you're living in a corner of the world where it's hard to get online and access this stuff, and the people around you are reactionary or want to limit your free expression. Like, these things really make kids unsafe. They make queer people unsafe, and it leads them to run into the arms of abusers. I've talked about this previously in my piece, Interact with Minors, but when a kid can't learn about queerness online in the privacy of their own home, on their own terms, at the pace they want to learn, sometimes the only place they get to express their queerness is a relationship with an adult predator who tells them, you're so mature for your age. I'm going to teach you about how to be gay. I'm going to show you how to have gay sex. I'm going to introduce you into this world that you're desperate for and give you some of the belonging you're desperate for. And I'm going to abuse you. I'm going to take advantage of your desperation to connect. So when young people have access to more information, when they can talk to safe adults online who are interested in just like helping them, then they aren't going to fall prey as easily. It also set me up to getting hurt by others in adulthood too. Yeah, you need a relational experience to be able to advocate for yourself and to know what being treated well looks like. And the more isolated you are, the less likely you are to know what that is. Here is a screenshot of an article from the Gay Times. It has a black background with the Grindr, like orangey yellow masked face icon. Grindr introduced age verification feature for UK-based users. Again, if you are in the UK, the EU, any American states, anywhere else where this age verification has really ramped up, please mention it in the chat or in the YouTube comments. I want to hear more about your experiences and how that's affecting your use of the internet and your ability to connect with other people on the internet, because this is all happening in real time. DJ on Dion says most major social media platforms are going to require ID or facial verification for new accounts everywhere in the next year. Yep. In order to comply with the laws in these countries, they're just going to have a blanket policy in much the same way that bans on sex work related content like FOSTA and SESTA led to an overall chilling effect across the internet of apps banning sexual content for everyone everywhere, not just for people in the US where that was a law. If there were safe queer adults for me to talk to, things would have gone very differently for me, says Astrology. Yeah. I'm just going to shout out the piece. I'm sure most of you, if you're here, you probably already know about it. But Interact with Minors is my big long piece on this. It's on Substack. There's also a video on YouTube about it. And it's talking all about how it is important for queer adults and kinky adults and just like safe adults who care about this stuff to interact with young people on the internet and give them access to resources, tell them, normalize for them how they deserve to be treated, have a healthy sense of boundaries with them, answer their questions, be a presence for them, see them in their queerness, because those are the things, when those things are just shrouded over, that lead to kids being more vulnerable to abuse. And having safe adults to talk to can make all the difference in the world. And I was on the internet as a young person in the early 2000s talking to adults, sometimes even about drugs and sex, and they taught me things that helped me stay safe from being preyed on. And it's very worrisome that everything about social media today is engineering the isolation of people from each other, but especially children. But I think we have to do everything we can to work against that. And that sometimes means taking risks for ourselves, because if we're adults, we have that power to make that decision. And we, as scared as we are, we have a lot more power than young queer people do. And I think we have to use that as best we can. The writing has been on the wall for years, but now it's in the boldest of fonts. If there is porn that you like, games with even remotely adult or queer content that you enjoy, queer art that you appreciate that features nudity or discussions of bodies, works of fiction that you love that features controversial subjects or themes, or any queer historical records that you think should continue existing, now is the time to build an archive of them. If you are panicked by the growing Libricide of LGBTQ and NSFW records from the internet, this is one very impactful thing you can do right now to help. Even if you don't know where to get started, even if you don't know where to go with it, you can take a small step right now to help ensure a future where these things are documented. Download the files, store them on a separate encrypted drive, upload them to a protected server, and communicate with other lovers of sexual art and queer records so that you can help build a library of it that is accessible to us as a community and those that come after us in the future. If you have the capability, keep meticulous records of what you have collected, where you found it, who originally made it, what year it comes from, the spaces and communities it was associated with, the names of the people who brought it into existence, and, this is crucial, keep that shit secure. This is stuff that we are already talking about in a lot of queer libraries and archives. Here in Chicago, we have the Gerber Hart Library, and we also have the Leather Museum and Archives, and spaces like that are talking about what do we do to protect these records even if the government comes after them and tries to destroy them, even if we don't have a brick and mortar museum or library anymore. Where is this stuff going to be? And that means using both official and unofficial channels, right? You have your official library that maybe gets government grants, and you have maybe a server with files for that library, but what's your backup for if the government comes and like destroys that library, or if you get attacked physically and your facility is destroyed? A lot of those spaces are quietly offline, off the public internet, building alternate records for this stuff, because we can't trust that public records are going to be safe. It's just really, really vitally important. I am not an expert librarian, archivist, any of that stuff. I keep everything I download in my fucking downloads folder. I'm a mess, right? And my friends who are librarians and archivists, they tell me that one of the big issues with keeping records is not even a lack of information, but sometimes just too much junk, and it's impossible to sift through. So it's not as simple as just downloading everything. Though I think that's a good place to start. If you have nothing else you can do, if you want to do something, just download your favorite itch games, download all your favorite queer books, throw them in a folder, but try to do it with some documentation. Do as I say, not as I do. This is not my area of where I excel. But put down the name of the book, the author, the year on the file, store it in a folder. Like, just build a trail of records and keep things privately in, password protected servers, in physical drives that you have in your house, keeping physical media under lock and key. Like, build that shit in whatever ways you are capable of doing, because we're going to need it. Include the date you downloaded it too. Thank you very much, DJ on Dion. Yes, because things are going to get plucked off the internet, altered, deleted, censored, and having a record of this is what this website looked like at this time in history, or what this game was like at this date, is really, really important. I attended a talk at the Leather Museum and Archives on the history of puppy play, done by a really amazing historian and kinkster, G, I think is his name. And it was a complete oral history of where pup play started. And he was able to isolate it down to photos of the first pup hood in the 80s and the first leather convention where someone made and wore a pup hood as a commentary and a joke. It was making fun of leather daddies and how self-serious they are. That moved one pup player to create a fake pup hood and come to the leather competition as a dog. It was a joke. That's how it started. And the only reason we know this is because individual people who were there at the time at this leather competition took pictures, wrote down what they know, wrote articles about it at the time, wrote diary entries, like took photos with the pup. And people kept those records and nourished them through the AIDS epidemic, through all kinds of attacks on queer history and the queer community, through tons of deaths. People held onto these records. I follow the Leather Museum and Archives on Instagram, and routinely they'll make a post that says, this person who was a hallmark of the community just passed away. Does anyone have pictures of them? Does anyone have stories about them? Do you have news articles? This person taught important boot blacking classes 20 years ago. Does anybody have clippings of those news articles? And that is what we have, is what people have chosen to save and gift to places like the Leather Museum and Archives. That is why we know our history. There isn't just some library out there that just does this stuff. It's people choosing to save this stuff and knowing that it's precious and documenting it well enough that it's useful. And the present becomes history in a flash. The present, the second you acknowledge it, it has already become history. And so there's so much to save and document, and you can't rely on memory to do it, because you're going to die and your memories are going to go with you, and your memories are going to get distorted over time. You're going to lose a lot of memories. And so something that was, in retrospect, this huge event in the community that everybody talks about, sometimes nobody has a record of it. They just have their vague recollection of what happened, unless you document things. And so it's really, really important to archive. And I think archival work is something that you can do, potentially, even if you're somebody who can't do other forms of on-the-ground activist work, right? If you're someone who is physically disabled, if you are high risk and you can't be out there having cops smash your skull in with a baton, maybe you are good at organizing this stuff. Or maybe you're good at just mass downloading stuff and you have a few terabyte drives you can save stuff on. Or you are willing to help set up a server and pay for the server hosting space so that other people can host queer archives on it. You can get plugged into this stuff. And it's really impactful. NDSR says a lot of historical records survived because one obsessive person at one point collected and described them through periods of general hostility or inattention. Absolutely. It requires somebody doing it. Like, I think we can be so casual with the recent past and thinking, oh, it's right there. I can still remember it. I can still practically taste it. And it's already gone. You can't get back to it ever. So all you have is what you save. Don't assume someone has it saved, says Slime Mage. Agreed. I get archival requests all the time at work that have no answers because we just don't have every single events calendar or letter saved. Yeah. Even in the digital world, don't assume that shit is saved. When we switch platforms, we lose all these saved drafts and archives and calendars and files, or the files are super poorly organized because somebody didn't give them a logical name or put them in a logical place. Sorry, it's so easy to get hasty with this stuff. I say always being hasty with this stuff. So organizing it and documenting it. If you're that type of autistic, oh my God, you can use your powers for good. Lovebite says, thank you so much for bringing up this all up, by the way. I'm talking about interacting with minors. Been a fan of your work since 2022, and my therapist brought up your book, Unmasking Autism. You saved my life and made me wake up and get out of that isolation from my other adult peers. Thank you for saying that. You saved you. I didn't save you. I'm just an idiot, who spent a few hours of my life in 2021 in a brick room typing on a computer. And everything that's come of it since then is other people. But thank you for reading and for making the most of ideas that were useful to you. Like you made that choice to do that. And a lot of people don't. So thank you for doing that and for being here and for your kind words. You're not an idiot. Oh, if you saw my downloads folder, you would know I was an idiot. I'm just a guy, you know. I'm just I'm good at like one thing, and that's like verbal ability. But once my singing lessons kick in, it's over for you hosts. So then I'll be good at two things. Not real. But thank you for being here. As the burning of the Hirschfeld archives and the catastrophic losses of the AIDS crisis taught us, queer history evaporates quickly when there is no one around to keep circulating it. But you can be a part of what keeps our stories flowing, the blood moving through us that keeps us animated and alive. And you do not have to be a trained historian or especially skillful with technology, though now is also a wonderful time to learn how to be a better archivist. Just begin doing something. Save and document all that you can in a private space that you control and that technology companies cannot purge. Data hoarding. Go on the data hoarding subreddit. Get yourself a terabyte drive. They're cheaper than ever these days. Print shit out. Organize shit. Download shit. Even if you see something on social media that you think is maybe likely to get censored, screenshot that shit and take a little note. And that can make a huge difference because sometimes it's a blink and you miss it experience of censorship where somebody posts something and then it's just immediately gone because of an algorithm or an AI taking it down. Scooter Frog says, me, I want to go into libraries and archives, and what's happening now is literally pushing me out of my isolation and looking forward to helping my local community. Ooh, data hoarding, I'm going to look into that. Yay, Scooter Frogs, that makes me so happy. Yes, this is like... If you're like a shy, bookish, awkward, autistic person, or you just don't have a lot of social spoons, and you can't do a lot of the like volunteering or activist work that's like talking, meetings, talking to normal people, going out in the world, making potlucks and hanging with the people, like I get it. I hate a lot of that stuff too. It's very very, very draining. You can do so much important work by just being alone in your room, downloading files, updating a spreadsheet with information about those files, and like hitting people up on like Discord who are also doing that shit. And those people can be your friends in your community, and the community at large will value you so much for the shit you do sitting in private in your room, you know, moving files around and saving things and updating records. Like if that is where your skill set lies and that's what moves you, We always need more people who are like checking the emails, updating the spreadsheet, checking the calendar, archiving things. Like, you can have a place in community even if you're not especially social or not social right now. Like, it's a great place to start. It's a very low stakes place to meet people because you can interact digitally, uh, and so it's very COVID safe. It's very introvert friendly. It's very I'm not good at talking to people friendly. Um, so so do it. We need more queer Marion Stokes. Yeah, absolutely, desperately. And a lot of people are doing that shit about their fandoms. Um, so translate some of that stuff to backing up some porn. Like like I have a friend who is like a huge drone porn person who just like downloaded as much off of like Spank Bang, because that's one of the few places with good hypno porn on it still, that they could recently, because they knew, the people are going to need this archive. I'm going to need to jerk off to this stuff later, and it's not going to be online anymore. And other people will want it too. I've been downloading games all weekend. Yay! That's awesome, DJ on Dion. That's really good. Download your porn, archive your porn. It's a good thing. Be a gooner. Build a goon library. Uh, it's so necessary right now. It's amazing how often a podcaster loses control of their own archive, and it's one person who listened 5 years ago who has the only known file in existence. Yeah. Yep. I was just doing that with my fiction podcast that I used to make. It's on Vimeo still, but like where I used to host it for the RSS feed, I think I gave up on the project. I forgot about it. It was like 50 episodes of like edited fiction with like music and voice acting and like shit and PowerPoint slides. And I just kind of was like, whatever, this project is a flop. I'm not going to look at it. But thankfully it's like archived in one place because just the data hosting on Vimeo is still there. Like, it's so easy to lose track of your shit. And then with things like Twitch having a limit on how many like file backups you can have, you can only have an hour or 100 hours of content hosted on their site anymore. You really cannot count on these platforms to hold onto your shit. Like, if Instagram decided to just nuke my Instagram because of something I posted, which they could do at any time, I don't have an archive of that shit. All of that writing, all of those images would be gone. Documenting things, preserving things is an intentional practice. It doesn't just happen. It is also important at this time to understand how LGBTQ content bans happen on a tactical level and resist in kind. Collective Shout pressures platforms into removing NSFW content by contacting payment processors, such as Visa and MasterCard, and convincing those companies to not process any transactions involving sexual works. Collective Shout claims that it only took about 1,000 phone calls to get companies to enforce an NSFW ban. We can also call them in large numbers and demand that adult and queer content gets put back. I'm not usually a call your reps type person, but I think this is something where there's been enough of a backlash from gamers across the whole spectrum of gamer ideologies, because even sexist gamer bros are mad that their big titty waifu games are gone, right? Like, they see this as bad too. This is something where I think it is worth calling and saying, what the hell? If a game that you paid good money for on Steam or itch.io has been removed in the NSFW ban, you have grounds to demand a refund. So that's the easiest, most cut and dry call you can make. Give your payment processor a call, make a complaint, ask for a chargeback, get them to issue you a chargeback, and this can help place pressure on both payment processing companies and game hosting platforms to get them to revise their policies. So this is from that Reddit thread. This is from a user named Zephyr256K, and they've listed the numbers to call for a lot of payment processors that are involved in enforcing this ban. MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal. You can also call Stripe and complain to them. And Maddie had a fun hack that she came up with of creating like a Stripe business account, like telling Stripe that you are a company that does like thousands and thousands of dollars in business every year, but that you are not going to make a Stripe account unless they allow NSFW transactions. Because if you're setting up a Stripe shop as a business owner with like a large business that does a lot of money, they have a human call you to set up your business account, because that's a lot of money for them to be dealing with. Like, they're going to court you as a client. So basically, you want to just kind of fill their inbox with like complaints. So they think that they're losing money from large companies or large businesses that don't want to use Stripe because of the content ban. Just fill up their inbox, fill up their voicemails, and convey the seriousness of this. I think especially if you have something that you bought has been removed from Steam, because that's such a clear-cut, easy complaint to make. Say, hey, I bought this game. They took it off the library. I need you to issue a chargeback. I need a refund from that. And companies really don't like it when your credit card company does a chargeback on them and they suddenly have to refund money from like years ago. So it's a thing you can do. Another way to make a difference if you are a phone-using neurodivergent. If you have Karen powers, if you have the desire to be a little angry on the phone, use your Karen powers and call these phone numbers. I didn't even think about getting them to actually call me about that. Oh, yeah, potentially. If you want to do a little acting challenge. If you want to, do some character work, like what's your business? Like, I make novelty decals for Tumblr cups, and some of them have adult content on them. I don't know. And let people customize their Ray Dunn housewares and make them porny. It is also important during this time to study the recent history of LGBTQ and NSFW censorship on the internet and learn from communities that have been able to resist it successfully. One of the very first groups to be targeted by efforts like these was actually the Hypnosis Kink community, back in the late 90s and early 2000s. During that time, an avid porn site user reportedly disputed hundreds of dollars in charges, alleging that he had been hypnotized into giving his credit card information away against his will. To avoid future such cases, the payment processors Visa and MasterCard refused to honor any transaction for any content involving hypnosis or mind control, and this has remained their policy ever since. And this is an article I wrote a few years ago about this, and I performed this live, actually, at the Paper Machete in Chicago. The surprising origins of the OnlyFans sexual content ban. The site's failed attempt at censorship has much deeper, more nefarious origins than you might think. So this is from September 2021, when OnlyFans was intimating at banning sexual content. They wanted themselves to just be more of an influencer content site, and part of that was pressure from payment processors about the content they were hosting, including hypnosis content. So hypnosis content has been verboten on the internet with payment processors for a very, very long time. And this is another example, actually, of how fleeting internet history is, because everybody in the Hypnosis Kink community knows about this. Some of us were around when it happened, when that turn happened, and suddenly porn sites started banning hypnosis content. But it happened long enough ago that we don't have a good record of who the guy was who disputed the charges with his payment processor and led to this ban. We just know, like, through the oral history of the people that were there and things people wrote about it after it happened, that this thing happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, where all of a sudden Visa and MasterCard got really scared of hypnosis content on porn sites because they had to issue a refund to some guy. Like, it's reached the point of, like, mythology. And in fact, in this article itself, half the sources that I have about that event are now defunct because they were Twitter threads or articles that are no longer up. that we're talking about it in like 2021. So we lose our history so fast. A lot of articles, even just reporting on these crises, get taken down because the articles talking about them are sexual content or seen as sexual content by news sites sometimes. We'll get into this later in the piece, but a lot of writing about this, journalism about this, done by Anna Valens, friend of the show, Anna Valens. We're a big fan of her here. Her articles reporting on these attacks have been taken down from news websites. It's not porn. She's just reporting on the suppression of porn. And that has been suppressed. Like, that is how badly censored this shit is and how fragile any information on the internet really is. They can take down your reporting in a second. They can take down your tweet. They can take down your archive. And then it's gone. And then we don't even have a history of what happened. Maddie says, they ask for the website, so it has to be a real site. Oh, for being a fake business owner on Stripe. Oh, well, now this is a real test of commitment to the bit. You could make a fake company. But I would assume it would have to be like a .com that's like credible as its own site. Presumably. Decades before the Tumblr ban, long before Imgur removed decades worth of queer archival work by deleting all images from anonymous accounts, Hypnosis Kink content was already banned on any porn site, and it was impossible to use a Visa or MasterCard to purchase any videos, illustrations, or works of fiction with erotic hypnosis or mind control themes. Hypnosis has remained forbidden. It's really at the top of the list of censored content with payment processors. Banned everywhere from OnlyFans to Patreon. This was a really encompassing ban, by the way. You couldn't have videos of just a man hypnotizing a hypnotic subject and there isn't even sex involved in it. You couldn't hire someone to make a custom hypnosis video where you maybe hypnotize them over Skype or whatever and you record that. You couldn't hire someone to write a fiction about hypnosis. All of that was stuff that payment processors would not allow. If anything about Hypno or mind control was in the description or in the memo for the payment, you're shut down. And that has been the policy for these sites for a really, really long time. It's been the policy with payment processors since before OnlyFans and Patreon existed, before Pornhub existed, because Pornhub came out in 2007. So, like, we're talking ancient porn sites. I don't even remember what porn sites we used to go on back then. Does anybody remember the names of the porn sites from, like, the early 2000s? Hypnosis was banned then, too. When they were letting fucking anything fly. Like, people were posting all kinds of shit on porn sites back then. Free for all to see. No identity verification, no consent verification, none of that stuff. There was still Hypnosis ban. And now, even many of the news articles about this ban have been scrubbed from the internet. Check out the archived writing of Anna Valens here, who has been blowing the whistle on collective shout and homophobic digital censorship for a long time and has been harshly pilloried for it. And here I will link to it. This is the archive.org backup of a Daily Dot article. So in July of 2020, Anna Valens reported for the Daily Dot about why Patreon was beginning to censor NSFW content. And it all ties back to the Visa and MasterCard hypnosis porn ban from long ago. So she's reporting in 2020 about a Patreon called Gay Spiral Stories. So they just wrote fiction about like hypnosis, like gay hypnosis porn. And the site was no longer available for funding on Patreon because Patreon approached Martin and told him that he had violated the site's rules on non-consensual sexual scenarios because it was hypnosis. Payment processors view all hypnosis as non-consensual. And so that's why they ban it. No matter how consensual or imaginary it is. So Anna Valens reported on this stuff years ago as Patreon was really starting to crack down on sexual content on their sites. And they also now, as of 2020, had started monitoring creators' work off-site for abusive content. So even if you posted something that they had a problem with on your Twitter, they could potentially shut your Patreon down. So Anna Valens was reporting about this issue 5 years ago. This article has now been taken down by the Daily Dot. Anna Valens did a lot of tech reporting in this sphere around this time before she got like basically blacklisted and run off the internet by transphobic, transmisogynistic hate mobs. And since then, a lot of these websites have fallen to pressure to delete all of her writing. They want nothing to do with her. And so to save their own skin and to keep themselves from looking nasty and sexual, they've deleted all of Anna Valens' reporting just on censorship. So that really tells you just how far this this sex-negative, puritanical, transphobic mob really has gotten. That you can't even let a trans woman report on censorship. That you can't even share her name. As a journalist, a well-respected journalist who wrote for a number of these platforms for years, they just want nothing to do with her. And they want to act like they never had anything to do with her to protect themselves. That is where we are at. And it's terrifying. And if there wasn't an archive.is backup link of this, we couldn't even look at this article in this history, this recent history of 5 years ago. So, archive fucking everything. If you have the spirit in you to do that, please do it. And if you believe in Anna Valens' work, consider offering some financial support on Substack so she can keep it going. Because she does not have legacy media or any like tech media holding the line for her anymore. They've all deleted her articles. They won't hire her. They've blacklisted her. They treat her like shit as she's being attacked by transphobic mobs all the time and being accused of completely untrue things and doxxed and horrible things when she was like the leading voice in blowing the whistle on this stuff. So if you have the funds, head on over to nsfw.substack. That's her Substack, Not Safe for Who, where she talks about a lot of these things and also about her personal experiences as a trans woman on the internet and a VTuber. You can follow her on here as well, and on Twitch, and give her some love. Like, subscribe to her Patreon, subscribe to her Substack to read her articles, and throw her a little coin if you can, because she really deserves it and needs it, and has been punished so harshly for nothing. In spite of harsh repression at the hands of credit card companies and digital platforms, the Hypno Kink community has continued to thrive and even grown in popularity and public acceptance in recent years. As many of you know, I am a long-term member of this diverse and queer-affirming community. I spent all of last weekend at an in-person erotic hypnosis convention, which I blogged all about on Instagram, if you want to catch those highlights. So I know a bit about how we have managed to cope with being attacked and have come out stronger and healthier than we were before. And truly, this really is true. Hypnosis kink communities were very niche for a long time, and people saw it as inherently rapey. And now all of our conventions are growing. Hypnosis is a kink whose stock is way up on the kink stock report. Pups are into it. Furries are getting into it. Bimbos are into it. Obviously, sissification really helped put us on the map. Thank you, sissification content lovers. Gooning is kind of hypno adjacent. Lots of communities are into hypno now and not afraid of us. And it's a beautiful thing to see. I think that any of us who are concerned by the stripping of queer and sexual content from the internet can learn from how the Hypno Kink community has responded to similar censorship over the years and adopt some of their strategies. About Anna Valens, Maddie says, most recently a bunch of people were subtweeting about her because she took too low of pay for freelancing, despite being close to being evicted. She literally can't get, like, gigs anymore for well-paying journalistic outlets because they blacklisted her. So if people are trying to call her fucking like a picket line crosser for taking low-paying gigs, that's fucking bullshit. people are so vile to her, and she's such a wonderful person. And she's been here for us on this show. She's helped us out before, and been incredibly kind and generous with her time. So, yeah, she deserves so much better than this shit. One of the first things that the Hypno Kink community learned once it was under attack was not to self-snitch. No self-snitching, 2025. Don't out yourself in ways that are going to hurt you. Don't blow up the spot. When we got banned from mainstream porn sites, we found the seedy, poorly regulated platforms that were not as likely to enforce payment processors' ban on hypnosis content. So we got off the porn hubs and onto the spank bangs and the X hamsters and the like cunt with like 7 T's or whatever that website is. Like the shitty, seedy, fucked up porn websites where they were not complying with payment processors' demands, and they were probably not based in the US, and like who knows what the fuck their business model is. Like those places were where we started archiving things and torrenting things and just sharing links to files on Tumblr with each other, on Skype, in Skype rooms with each other, now on Discord. That was how a lot of our community continued to exist. On sites like Pornhub and Patreon, we learned to use terms like mesmerized and other euphemisms instead of hypnosis or mind control, or to merely reference media properties where hypnosis is featured without saying it outright. So we learned to play the game. This is something queer people have always had to do. This is where flagging comes from. It's from when you didn't have the freedom to say you were gay openly. You had to have these little gestures that only members of your community would recognize, whether that was a bandana in your pocket or an earring on the gay ear, or whatever else. And speaking of media properties where hypnosis is prominent, was this anybody's hypnosis mind control root piece of media in the chat? It's Shigo from Kim Possible. It's a Wikipedia entry on the fandom wiki about the neurocompliance chip from the cartoon Kim Possible. Now, I was a little too old for Kim Possible, but my sister did watch it, so I did see the episode, The Twin Factor, I think it is, it says here, where Dr. Draken used a neurocompliance chip to, like, mind control Shigo. And oh, that shit was hot. Oh, I love mind control with a techie angle, because for some reason that seems more realistic to me. It's like, oh, maybe that could happen for real. Maybe someday I can try it. So this is one of my, not my root, but like a beloved cartoon depiction of hypno content, and the root for many people. So sometimes hypno porn creators will just say like, you know, neurocompliance chip in their porn, or they'll say Mewtwo and Nurse Joy roleplay because Mewtwo hypnotized Nurse Joy in Pokemon, or 2B from what's it called, with the robot people, with the sexy robot people. She's another very beloved character that people love to see reprogrammed and hypnotized. 2B and 9S. What the fuck is that game? Nier Automata. Ka from the Jungle Book. That's a huge one. There's a lot of Ka from the Jungle Book porn, so people just say like Ka and adult Shanti or whatever. That's how we find each other. If you know, you know. Totally Spies. Again, that's after my time. But Totally Spies was a very big hypno route for a lot of people, so there's a lot of Totally Spies porn. There's a lot of Hypno Zelda porn, because there's a few different mind control mechanics in the games, especially Wind Waker. I could go on and on and on. And in fact, I have gone on and on. I do have a thread on my NSFW Tumblr that's just people listing their Hypno Kink roots, and it's like thousands and thousands of notes. We became data hoarders, snapping up copies of every porn video, erotic audio file, animated GIF, and illustration featuring hypnosis that we could find, and then sharing it on forums with our fellow fetishists. We learned to make and share our work in private, in chat rooms, on password-protected servers, and began hosting hypnotic content on shared drives and websites we didn't widely advertise. I'll say a few words about this part. I talked to someone, speaking about recent internet histories, at the Hypnosis Con, who is an old head, a big organizer of the Hypnosis Munch group here in Chicago, the Mesmer Hypnosis Munch group, where people meet to demo and talk about hypnosis stuff. And he said that for the longest time, all of the hypno people who would go to conventions together, they would chat throughout the year on Skype channels, and they would make like separate Skype rooms for different topics. So they had a general one for everybody in the community to just like talk and maybe talk about hypnosis. Then they had a separate Skype group for those same people, to talk about movies or video games, separate one for like food, whatever, the things people talk about. Basically, they were making a Discord server with Discord's channels years before Discord existed. And then eventually they migrated to Discord. But that was a part of Hypno Kink community that I missed. I was on Skype doing Hypno some in the Skype days, but I was not in these groups. And so I didn't know that there was a ton of people who they knew each other from those groups, and they had like years worth of chats together and links to things, sharing links to spirals, sharing hypnosis text files, audio files, all this stuff, planning events, planning meetups, this whole history. And he said that he was trying to download that record, right, because Skype was, Skype shut down recently, and he couldn't get it in time. So hopefully somebody else in those Hypno Skype rooms archived everything that happened in there, but we just don't know whether they did. There is a lot of really great archiving done in the hypnosis community. Like we all have our like favorite people. Like there's this one hypnotist who filmed probably in the early 2000s, and he's like this little old white guy, little skinny white guy in cargo shorts, who he always has the most bored facial expression on. Like he looks like this as he's like hypnotizing these girls, but he gets the deepest fucking trances on the people he hypnotizes. Like people who have never been hypnotized before, people who have run into like resistance and they like have trouble getting like down into a trance for him. Like he just massages that shit out. Like there was something about him. I wish I knew his name. And some people in the community still know his name. It eludes me. He made just the best, like just casual hypnosis porn videos. Like the trances were so fucking hot. Like he just got people so deep. He was just a pro. And we still share his videos around. I still have archives of them that people have uploaded onto Spank Bang. And that's still some of the best hypnosis content out there, is the shit that this incredibly bored man in cargo shorts made like 20 years ago. Maybe more than 20 years ago. And we only still have it because freaks were jerking off to it, and they downloaded an archive of it and then uploaded it onto Spank Bang or X Hamster or whatever. There's a really old hypnosis GIF, like early 2000s, frame by frame animated GIF that somebody hand drew of this like buxom kind of Jessica Rabbit type character, this red-haired woman. I think her name's Ruby in the text. And like it's like, oh, have you ever been hypnotized, Ruby? And then they like hypnotize her with like a little pendulum that appears, and then eventually she's like sucking dick in the animation. It's very like cartoony, again, Jessica Rabbit style animation, and this like ghost cock like appears and like fucks her face, and then it fucks her brain, and it's like super hot. It's also really corny. It's just like a hand-drawn animation. It's very fake looking, but it's like still one of the hottest things around, and people still dig it up and be like, hey, do you guys remember Ruby's whatever? Like it has a name. It's like Ruby's Trance or something like that. And like we still pass that stuff around like with adoration, because that stuff was precious. It was this hand-drawn, carefully animated thing at a time when that was really, really hard to do. And you still see it. Like there's gifts like that people in the community just share and keep archived. And like, thank God that people cared enough to do that, because that shows it's hot as fuck, which is good enough of a reason to keep it around. I love that shit. A ghost penis fucking somebody's brain. That's one of my number one things. I love that shit. It's so fucking cool. But also like, it's an important part of our history, of our community. that people were making that art at that time. And so, like, I'm just so grateful for people who organize those things. And it's because we hoarded data privately and shared it amongst each other. So it kept circulating in private channels. It wasn't just hosted on Tumblr or on a Skype group. Some members of our community built their own platforms for hosting hypnotic-themed works, such as the excellent fiction site Read Only Mind, and developed tools that helped hypno-kinksters remain connected to partners from afar, such as Dreamy Chat and Write For Me. Cocksucking ghost. Well, she wasn't a ghost. There was a ghost penis, and she was sucking the ghost penis. Yeah, we love it. Shout out to Read Only Mind. This is started by my friend Ari and Doc. And this is a site for hosting hypnosis fics of all different kinds. There are other sites too, like the Erotic Mind Control Stories Archive, EMCA, really good. Lots of great little drabbles and longer fics too. I was referencing that classic YouTube video of a guy shouting to cocksucking ghost. Oh, okay. Thank you. I forgot that one. There's hypnofix on like AO3 and stuff like that, but this is one that was built by somebody who's a really important member of the community. She's been here on the streams for some of the 1,000 Times Resist streams, Ari, and is just a really cool person that I'm very thankful to know. And there's so many great works on this site. Let's see what's on the menu right now. Not Into Girls by Starbeam, Female Dom, Dubious Consent, Lesbification, Sadomasochism. Lily is a straight trans woman. She knows she's not into girls, so why does she feel so weird saying that? So it sounds like, she gets hypnotized into lesbianism. Get into it. Sasha's Bench, Female Dom, Female NB Dom, Man for NB, From the Bottom's POV, Male Sub. So it looks like this is about a male sub getting hypnotized by a NB woman top. When you're alone and life is getting lonely, come to the park and visit Sasha's Bench. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen on that bench. The continued adventures of Jack Putman and the magical women sworn to him. Augur, Blood and Bargains. Ooh, this one has a ongoing story. 10,000 words already. God bless. Let's see, this looks like another maybe science fiction or thriller one. Eyes like mine beheld such delights. Amaranth Thelexino Faustus is riding high. She's found love. Her sister, the rebel pilot Iris, is her adoring pet. Freedom calls. All will kneel for her. So there's some good shit on here, as you can see. Choose your pleasure. Do you want something with an elaborate, developed fictional world, or do you just want a short story of somebody getting fucked while in a trance, or do you just want to read about somebody going into a trance? Doesn't even have to have sex. Lots of good shit. Jukebox. I think that's the Erotic Mind Control Stories archive person. They have lots of stories. So check out Read Only Mind if you're into that kind of thing. Dreamy Chat is a chat platform that is just like a open chat room, and then also you can pair with people who are seeking to hypnotize or seeking to be hypnotized on this platform. It is a rebuild of a site that was very important in the community called Sleepy Chat that had a matchmaker function. And I actually met long-term partners from Sleepy Chat's matchmaker function. So very important part of the community too. Lots of people met themselves there. And then you have Write For Me. This is a site for writing mantras. So let's say you have a sub who lives far away and you want them to remember that you are their goddess and they're just a little worm. You can assign them to write lines on Write For Me. And you can give them an assignment that's like, write, so-and-so is my goddess and I'm nothing but a humble worm 100 times every day. And every time they make an error, you add 10 more lines that they have to write. And while they're writing, you might flash them with subliminals that says, you're just a worm, worship your goddess, blah, blah, blah. You can program all of that into Write For Me. I love it. You can use this as a hypnotic induction for a lot of people. Writing lines repetitively and having subliminals flashed in their face helps put them into a trance. And you can, even if you're just into kink in general, you can give your subs homework to write mantras on this site, and it's really, really cool. These are public ones. Let's see if we can look at a public one. Oh no, this one is you need to be logged in. You might need to log in to see all of them. Lulu Fink says, low-key want to use this for myself for positive reinforcement. Yeah, it's literally set one up. Oh, I have to log in. I'm not going to show my login stuff right now because it's been a minute since I've used this site. But you could literally just set it up and just say, like, write, I am a good, smart person, and gosh darn it, people like me 20 times a day. If I make a mistake, I'll flash a subliminal that says, you know, you're still valid, something encouraging. And at the end, you get a little success message, and it keeps a record of having completed lines. It's really sneaky, too, because I used to have, if you guys will indulge me, I'm going to tell a story. I had a Dom, a wonderful Dom, that I met off of Sleepy Chat. We just matched on Sleepy Chat in like 2015, got along really well, and it was like a months-long relationship that was wonderful. And he had me write lines for him on Write For Me. I had phrases. I'm like, oh man, I shouldn't even say them because they like are pretty ingrained in me as like having like hypnotic effects, but like mantras. And I was assigned to write them X many number of times per day. And I would like do it during my lunch break, typing my words. But I was a perfectionist. And I hated that, like, and he said it so that if I made a typo, it would give me more lines to do. So let's say if you make a typo, you have to write the line 5 extra times or something. I was such a perfectionist about it and such a little scamp that, like, I would sometimes start the lines like, oh, I'm just a worm. That was not my mantra. But let's say it was, I'm just a worm. I make a typo. I'm like, shit, I want to have a perfect record with no typos marked on the screen. So I would refresh and start over again. I'm just a worm. Okay, I got it right that time. I was doing that for months. And one day he told me, you know, I get a notification every time you open the lines, right? Like, he had it set up so that he would get an email that was like, Devin started doing his lines. Devin started doing his lines again. So he's like, so I know you've been refreshing every time you make a typo. So this is a deliciously fun tool for power dynamic stuff, for spying on your brats and rules lawyer subs and perfectionistic subs. If you like having homework, but it's hard to keep track of homework for, you know, your sub and your power dynamic, oh, this is such a fun tool. Check it out. Don't have to be into Hypno to use one Write For Me. Or make one for yourself that's just telling you that you're a good person, or whatever you need to hear. Try it out. I would love to hear it. Let me know, Lulu, how that self-brainwashing goes, because that would be amazing if you could brainwash yourself into liking yourself more, or whatever. We launched Discord servers and Telegram groups and monitored and restricted them ourselves. We gatekept when it was necessary so that the only people who could find us had an earnest interest in the safe practice of hypnosis. We didn't rely upon social media companies or legacy media. We launched small spaces that were entirely our own. Yeah, he got my ass. He fucking got my ass. Oh, Brian, you're great. He was the most organized and meticulous Dom I've ever had, and it makes you really feel cared for when somebody's actually keeping track of whether you're doing what you're supposed to do. Like, it built so much trust in the relationship and made the dynamic feel more powerful. It's like, oh, he can see everything I'm doing. He can even see when I'm trying to cheat at writing my lines. He's so in my head. Like, it was so sexy. It was so cute. It was, it was great. So yes, we created private groups and we gate kept those groups to an extent. You can't blow up the spot. You can't have it be too easy for everyone to find, because that can lead to a lot of problems, like them brigading you or reporting things. Rather than allowing outside groups to censor us, we took community responsibility for maintaining standards of consent and safety and gave no quarter to predators. At conventions, we require attendees to complete consent quizzes and provided dungeons with consent monitors. We offer classes on consent, safety, and developing agency as a hypnotic subject. Many of our events ban the use of substances and require COVID vaccinations and KN95 masks or higher in order to reduce risk. We continually debate how best to navigate riskier kink practices and negotiate encounters with one another. We are truly the meeting of the philosophers in Hypno Kink, because we are playing with the edges of consent and conscious awareness. And so it's required us to be very conscious of unconsciousness and how do you create the sensation of being taken over and hypnotized while still ensuring somebody has the safety to wake themselves up if something feels bad. Or, we find a lot of things like if someone has trouble saying what they want when they're awake because of masking and fawning, is there a way to get them relaxed enough and comfortable in a trance and affirm to them that while they're in a trance state, they can access their most true, uninhibited self and have them say what they're feeling in that state, There's all kinds of different aspects of how to negotiate hypnotic play and what even the experience of hypnosis is. What does it mean to have your mental state altered? What does it mean to consent when your mental state is altered? How do other altered mental states, like being on caffeine or alcohol or Adderall, affect your dynamic with other people and your thinking and your experience of being in the world? And how do we interact with those things and make sense of them? And that means that we've built communities that aspire to always get better and better at doing right by people. And this stuff is hard, ongoing work. It's not something where you can just put in place a rule and say, no one under this age is allowed, and that will ensure safety. No content depicting dubious consent allowed, and that will promise safety. You can't actually promise safety like that. A rule will always be bent or challenged, including rules about get enthusiastic consent first always. People will look for ways to bend and break the rules. And this is something that Sarah Casper, Comprehensive Consent, talks about. If you bring consent down to just rules, people will look for ways to exploit or break those rules to get what they want. And that's not what you want to do if what you're interested in is people having a pleasurable, mutual exchange of power that they enjoy and that they feel safe in. A consent contract is not going to promise you that. A hard line, fast rule about this is consensual, this is not going to get you that. The real work is a lot more complicated, and you have to really put that effort in. And a lot of members of our community are really invested in doing that. And navigating the murkier waters of this person is into intoxication play. How do we do that in a way where they get to have that experience and also their top feels safe and like they're not a predator and everybody has a good time, How do you work hypnosis into enacting a consensual non-consent scene and make it feel realistically scary and intense without traumatizing someone? Or if someone does get triggered and it reminds them of their trauma and it gets too intense, what are you going to do to take care of them? And take care of the top in that situation who probably also feels really horrible and freaked out. It's an ongoing work, and it's really rewarding if you're enough of a freak that you like debating this stuff, which a lot of people in our community do. Hello, artistic bum. I said autistic bum. Artistic bum. Hello, gay people in my phone. Good to see you. Waluigi Bowser says, it's hard for me to articulate my words in the first place because I have trouble wording stuff. Right. A lot of people in the kink community are neurodivergent, and not all of us are the most verbal. And so there are physical hypnotic inductions people can do with touch or with spirals or pendulums. And there are ways to negotiate consent that are over text or physical, behavioral, things that don't rely on having an in-person conversation in the moment right before the encounter happens. When hypnosis files come out that have no clear provenance and contain really extreme language and scarily effective triggers, such as the infamous Bambi sleep files, we as the community put out the warning and discourage people from playing hastily. We have made it a community norm to include content warnings and safeties in the majority of our hypnotic files, unless it's one designed not to, and then we warn people that it doesn't have safeties, so that no one absorbs any unwanted, lasting effects. We call out cults of personality and maintain an acute awareness of the power dynamics that emerge when a person forms a parasocial connection to a hypnotic file maker, or when two members of a couple role play at being master and slave for a long time. There's a few instances of abuse in this paragraph that I want to highlight and talk about. The first is Bambi's sleep. This is an article in BuzzFeed. After these people tried erotic hypnosis, they couldn't recognize themselves. The Bambi sleep files, a collection of audio recordings designed to hypnotize people, promise to make listeners obedient and sex obsessed, but some consider them to be unsafe. So, I'll talk a little bit about this. The Bambi sleep files are these very mysterious AI narrated hypnotic files that are on YouTube and have a dedicated website and server that we don't really know where they came from. Nobody really claims ownership of them, but they are really effective brainwashing files that are designed to make you into a bimbo and get addicted to listening to the files, to wear clothing that puts you into your bimbo persona. It tells you to create an alternate self inside of your brain called Bambi, who is a bimbo who's going to try and take over. And it kind of suggests to the listener that they should dress as Bambi, let Bambi take charge, that there are triggers that can be used on you at any time that will always work, whether you want it or not. Bambi will take over and make you go out and have sex with random men as Bambi. And it's a really hot fantasy. And the scary thing is that the files work really, really well. They are just engineered in a way that is just very ASMR, brain buzzy, unsettling, creepy, hot. I honestly do, and this is not just me thinking with my dick and making this happen because it's horny to me. I blank out every time I listen to these files. That's what I like about them, that they're so intense. They're a sequence of these 20-minute, 15-minute videos that add up into a long playlist that you're supposed to listen to when you go to sleep. And I have listened to them tons of times and I still can't remember them. They really give me hypnotic amnesia, really intense effects. That's fine. It's okay to play with something that is extreme and scary as long as you know what you are getting into and you know how to take care of yourself so that it doesn't make you literally develop a dissociative alter that you don't want to have, who's taking over your life. And some people reportedly have had issues with the Bambi sleep files, kind of fucking them up. And it's the lack of warnings that's the issue. So now a lot of people in the community will transcribe Bambi files, when a new one appears from the ether. They'll transcribe them. They'll write down trigger warnings for them. Some people make safer Bambi files that are using the same voice and format, but don't have themes of permanent change, inescapability, and things like that. So there's safer Bambi sleep files that people use, and that's part of how the community helps to protect itself. And generally, we discourage newbies from trying Bambi sleep. Hello, Oversolar. Welcome. This article in BuzzFeed is specifically about a small cult that was started around the Bambi sleep files, where this one man preyed on non-binary people and bimbofied them and made them his hypnotic submissives. And because these files are scarily effective, they were in really intense abuse scenarios that they don't remember, and he combined it with making them do drugs like psychedelics, and like kept them like in his house, like all listening to these hypnosis files over long weekends, and like drugging them, and like all of this awful shit happened. So this is a thing that happened in the community, and the community has really taken responsibility for it. As a community, we have really said these files can be dangerous depending on how you use them. We need to warn people about what's in these files and how to use them more safely. We need to discourage people from using them hastily. And we need to out people like the man who ran this cult, and make it clear to people that that there are hypnosis kink players out there that are preying on people and starting group, like high control groups, and sexually assaulting people. The hypnosis kink community didn't say, oh, that's just a weirdo, oh, we disavow this person, oh, we're not like that. Like, we can be like that if we're not careful. There are people among us who do these things. And so the community has generally been really strong about believing victims, outing predators, repeating over and over again that they are predators, disinviting people from conventions at the first sign of issues, and being pretty harsh in how we approach that stuff, because there is that potential for people to be traumatized or to have psychotic breaks. I've known people that have had a history of psychosis who they used hypnosis files and it fucked with them. You know, that's a real risk. And abuse is a real risk. And so as a community, we've done a pretty good job coming forward, sharing these stories, and trying to warn and protect other people. And when you do that, when you take community responsibility for protecting others, then you don't need external censors to hide your community away, blacklist you, and enforce their content moderation policies on you. You know, we don't need Instagram censors to figure out what's going to keep people safe. We keep us safe. So it's a very like abolitionist politic at the end of the day. We call out cults of personality and maintain an acute awareness of power dynamics that emerge when a person forms a parasocial connection to a hypnotic file maker, or when two members of a couple roleplay at being master and slave for a long time. So just to read that again, some people make hypnosis files that tell you you're getting addicted to my voice. My voice immediately has an effect on you. And that can create problems when you meet that actual person at a convention and they use the voice on you, even though you've never met them or negotiated things with them. So we are very clear in our community about the risks of these things and how important it is to build safeties into your files. Things like waking people up at the end of the file, saying that your commands will only be effective for the length of the audio, and as soon as the audio stops, the trigger won't work anymore. Or teaching people hypnotic effects will only work on you when it feels pleasurable and safe to do so. Just things like that. When a cornerstone of the European hypno-kink conference scene and a developer of one of the most popular spiral-generating websites was outed as an abuser, the majority of us took it seriously, ousted him from our spaces, and repeatedly warned others. His name is Nimja, by the way, Nimja, Nimja. He makes a website where you can program spirals with subliminals, and he makes a lot of hypnosis files on YouTube. And he has repeatedly preyed on young people and groomed young hypno-kinksters who did not have a lot of experience in the scene or many connections, and then kind of isolated them and abused them. He's been accused of sexual assault many, many times. There are many, many credible abuse allegations against Nimja. So we do not fuck with this guy. He is banned from the conferences here and across the pond. And when we see people using his site, we warn them and say, listen, that site is owned by an abuser, and so you don't want to give him your resources and clicks. We built alternative resources like SpiralMe, which allows users to gaze at spirals and subliminals and listen to their favorite hypnotic audios without supporting a predator. And I'll click on SpiralMe right now, because it'll just take you to the Safe for Work landing page. Spiral Me is made by Brian, Knowing Smile, who I've already spoken positively about. He's a good egg and a great member of the community. Nimja, Nimja, a hypnosis kink creator, not ninja. So this is Spiral Me. Basically, there are galleries with different animated spirals that you can look at. They also are set up so if you have like a Google Glass or like a headset that you can put your phone in, like a 3D headset that you can put your phone in, you can see it in like 3D. And you can look through all kinds of different spirals, either as it blown up on the screen large or in a tile of a bunch of little spirals. There's audio files that you can listen to while you look at the spirals, and so it's set to play. There's just general relaxation ones, robot drone hypnosis, intro to hypnosis stuff. There's many more you can see if you create an account. This is just the safe for work stuff. And you can just create a like random combination of spiral and audio if you want, sorted into flashing and non-flashing. And you can also program subliminal messages to hop onto this screen as you're watching the spiral. And you can change the opacity and like all this cool stuff. My issue with hypno stuff is that it's seizure and epilepsy inducing depending on the hypno stuff. Yeah, a lot of spirals, a lot of hypnosis files you would want to steer clear from if you are at risk of epilepsy. Though that is another big community norm. I've definitely gotten yelled at a few times for sharing something and not tagging it epilepsy or like flashing trigger warning. People are pretty good in the community about enforcing that norm of like you have to tag whether something is flashing or not. So here, some of the spirals are tagged as flashing or no flashing. And you can also program your own subliminals if you're, I believe, if you have an account. So this is, Nimja had a site that was like this, and now we have an alternative that is not associated with a predator and is associated with somebody who's been in the community a long time. Some of our local scenes have offered a safe haven for Nimja's victims, and believing victims has long been our community norm. NIHU, which is a northeastern U.S. conference, for a long time their policy was, if an accusation comes forward about you, we are asking you to leave, period. That used to be what their policy was, like no tolerance policy. But we've also been willing to discuss limitations of simple rules of thumb, such as believe victims, because many of us have seen how vague, unsubstantiated accusations of harm can be brought forward to socially dispose of marginalized group members, particularly people of color and trans women. We're an analytical bunch and take nothing as simply and universally true. An inability to ever stop thinking and questioning is probably why we're all so desperate to get hypnotized. So we're steadily evolving also in how we approach this stuff, which is necessary, I think. I'm talking a lot of inside baseball here about here's what the Hypno Kink community does. Aren't we great? Aren't we cool? But this is about like building a community with norms, with an abolitionist politics where you are keeping people safe, letting people be freaky and kinky and sexual, and constantly revising how to do that effectively and how to maintain your history effectively so that we don't get cleaned out by the state. So that we don't get demonized as like a den of abusers by the state and then attacked. So I hope those parallels are clear to people, even if you're like, I don't care about this hypno shit. Like, that is the analogy to the situation that we're all facing right now as queer people on the internet. We've continued gathering in person and in small virtual conferences because there are conversations about our shared passion that require an in-depth conversation among people who are at a higher level of understanding. Not every conversation is for everyone. Not all information should be publicly available to everyone. We discuss more complex, nuanced topics in rooms where people are prepared to have them. And we understand that every rule has the power to cause exclusion and damage, and appreciate that even the best guidelines need to be broken sometimes. For example, plenty of people still benefit from using substances for their mental health, even at a substance-free con. Because the kink we are playing with can be psychologically very risky, we emphasize the importance of being in community with one another and vetting play partners, and speak about our experiences so that we can better understand what we're going through and what we need. We do what we can to unlearn our shame and stigma and to bring our feelings and needs out into the open, but not in front of corporations and social media platforms that will only punish and censor us. Again, this is what being out used to mean for queer people. Out among your people, not out to the whole world in a way that might make you vulnerable. We come out to one another and commune to build better art, more responsible and effective hypnotic files, to write hotter smut, to have better scenes, to be able to play at the edges of consent and consciousness with intention and responsibility. This does not erase all of the risk, but it allows us to be informed of it and to accept what difficulties and costs we take on. That's a link to an article of mine called "There is no safe sex, there is no safe life. Fucking, transitioning, and resisting the state all require admitting some risk into your life." So make sure you're aware of what risks you're letting in. Nearly everyone finishes a scene by asking who needs aftercare and what does that aftercare look like. We prepare for the emotional drops of having seen and experienced intense shit. And for the most part, we are grateful that we get to dive with such strong parachutes. A member of the community, Ella Enchanting, whose work I'm a big fan of, she even made a post-con drop hypnotic file. So for those who don't know, con drop is when you come home after a big convention and you've just had all these intense experiences. You saw all of your friends that you never get to see. You learn so many new things. You're running around on no sleep. You get home. You're so depressed. You're embarrassed. You think you made an ass of yourself. You hate yourself. You think none of that was real. You wish you could get back there, but you think you'll never get to enjoy it again. Whatever. You're depressed. And she made a hypnosis file that was all about like, okay, you're going to remember all of the wonderful experiences you had and feel grateful and just kind of honor the slow come down and change in energy that you're experiencing. And it was designed to help people weather that transition more smoothly, which is so nice. It is this combination of privacy, technological shrewdness, dedicated archival and resource building work, and loving community responsibility that has made us robust. Though so many outside forces have attempted to silence us and portray us as a group of perverted predators, we've continued spreading the truth about who we are and helping people who share our desires to find one another and to revel in our passions as safely as we can. When I was first admitting to myself that I had a fetish for hypnosis, it was still a largely unheard of fetish that I found profoundly embarrassing and cringy. I told very few people that I was into hypnosis because I was so ashamed of myself and felt certain I'd never be able to make it a genuine part of my life. I played only with strangers that I met on the internet and didn't have any protections or social support when anything in those relationships went awry, whether that was abuse or more commonly just like interpersonal problems or communication problems. Like all queer people who didn't get to find information about themselves, I was internally conflicted and lost. Today, Hypnosis Kink's stock is way up with lots of other queer communities who are curious about us rather than scared of us. Pup players, bimbos, bondage fanatics, tantric sex practitioners, psychedelics users, furries, and robot fuckers all embrace hypnosis as a legitimate erotic practice. And Hypnosis 101 courses at dungeons are regularly filled from wall to wall with attendees. We have escaped the fear-mongering and corporate pressure and made something completely our own. All queer people and all makers of sexual or erotic art can do the same. We will get through this, but we will have to be more than just passive consumers of content. We will have to become archivists, librarians, developers, community stewards, consent monitors, peer educators, advocates, organizers, and creators in our own right. And we can do it. Queer people have been producing creative work about our identities and inner erotic lives for as long as we have existed. And we have always been able to find one another in the back rooms of bars, in small bookstores, in cities, in veiled language, in personal ads, and everywhere else that we have tricked our enemies into not looking. And that's a really important part, I think. Finding each other in the shadows. That is how we survive. Together in the dark, we survive. This is a screenshot of my Hypno tattoo from a tattoo artist here in Chicago called Space X Girlfriend. It's on my neck. It's a little drawing of a Hypno that's a little more abstracted, and you can also see my testosterone gel tattoo as well. Today, I flag my kink on my neck in honor of all those who cannot live in the open. I spent the past weekend catching up with friends that I've chatted with online for nearly a decade, but whom I rarely get to see, kindling new connections with dollification aficionados and passionate kink educators, and joining alongside fellow drones in a rubbery blank embrace. This crazy, inimitable life of mine was made possible through the early hypno-kink websites of the early 90s, like warpmymind.com, which is still up, by the way, which first taught me that I was not alone. Digital communities like Hipbook and Sleepy Chat, which allowed an early version of my hypno-kinky social network to form. And thanks to the ongoing efforts of every single person who goes to a convention, transcribes an audio file, or shares an old clip of mind control porn. I want everyone to experience the exhilaration and confidence that finding such spaces has brought me. But I know that what we've made is precious, and it's under attack. And so, while I can't exactly blow up every private hypno-kink spot, I leave breadcrumbs for the people like me who are still a bit lost and trying to find their way to their own special enclave of queer freedom. If you happen to be lost like that, the thing I would most encourage you to do is find your way to participate in and contribute to kinky queer spaces and their history. Come forward, seeking not only to find a partner, get laid, or make tons of money selling content, but to contribute to something larger than you that makes it possible for you to connect at all. We will always be here, making beautiful things in the shadows together. No corporation or censor or pearl-clutching advertiser or advocacy group will ever be able to stop that. And if you enjoyed this piece, I recommend, again, checking out Not Safe for Who by Anna Valens, nsfw.substack.com. I've also linked to some of my favorite porn games that are still on itch.io. I Think Therefore is a text hypnosis session. It is developed by Sleeping Girl, who is a really beloved member of our community. Sleeping Girl has written The Brainwashing Book, a great introduction on brainwashing play, and a couple of other books on erotic hypnosis that you can get on Amazon or wherever you get your ebooks. And she also has made a 20-minute hypnosis text session about your mind being erased that you can play on itch. Nyx Goddess Games makes a ton of really cool, kind of drony, technological, gamified hypnosis games. Games that hypnotize you and make you into kind of like a drone, a robot. If you like Hex Corp and their kind of like drone-ification vibe, you'll like Nyx Goddess Games. There's also just games about submitting to a goddess and serving her. Really fun and effective hypnosis games. And then The Tea Room, historical public bathroom simulator, by what is it? Is Radiator Yang? What's his first name actually? The Tea Room is an amazing game. Robert Yang, yes. So this is a game where you are, it's based on a real cruising space in Mansfield, Ohio, that was raided by the police in the 60s, and had like hidden cameras set up in them. And in this game, you play a person cruising in the tea room. And so it's important historical work, and it's fucking smut. And it's a fun video game, God damn it. It's art. It's video games, it's smut, it's history, get into it. Archive that shit while it's still there. that is it for the piece. I do want to highlight a comment that I got on the piece on Medium from my good buddy James Finn. He's a wonderful writer who covers queer oppression throughout the United States, predominantly on his Medium account. So here's what James had to say. Here's some hard irony. With 80,000 followers on Medium, you've had almost no reaction to this story because Medium is algorithmically suppressing it. They won't even let your followers see it. Medium is evidently suppressing a lot of queer content lately, by the way, as they clearly bow in anticipatory obedience to the fascists running the United States government. At Prism and Pen, which is the periodical he runs on Medium, we see it clearly because we publish queer stories every day and can closely track what happens to them. Just in the last few months, for example, polyamory has become the kiss of death in any of our stories. One of our writers used to have their work distributed pretty highly by Medium, writing about her bisexuality and polyamory. Now, her work is algorithmically suppressed instead of boosted by Medium's human curators. And James is one of those curators. So he often recommends my work be featured. But if he were to do that with this piece, presumably it would not be. And another big advocate for queer content on Medium, Harris Sokol, recently left the site. So that's also why I think its policies are getting a lot worse. Because Harris was a really big advocate for my work over and over again, and for queer work on Medium in general. And strong stories, personal, raw stories. Similarly, one of the leaders of Cleveland's bear and fetish community has written several really beautiful stories for us. He's an exceptionally gifted writer. He's written about the love that fills his polyamorous family, showing people a different model of healthfulness and goodness. But despite his talent, any mention of polyamory is now the kiss of death on Medium. We don't do a whole lot better on Blue Sky, by the way, despite their claim to be a progressive, left-leaning social media platform. Blue Sky has marked several of our header images as adult content, even when they are absolutely not adult content. In each of the cases where that happened, those images were simply gay. Men, sometimes without shirts, showing affection to other men. Can't have the perverse queerness on Blue Sky, think of the children. Eye roll emoji. Reactionary conservative forces are working hard to turn the screws on queer people today, and far too many people and organizations are helping them do it. Thanks for your story. Thank you so much, James, for highlighting this. Let me give him a shout out too right now. He's James Finn on Medium at jfinn6511. He also runs a publication called Prism and Pen, which features the writing of a lot of different queer writers, and weekly writing prompts too, to encourage more people to tell their stories and write. So if you have a Medium account, I know that a lot of what I just said is very discouraging of using Medium, but if you do use Medium, where there are still a lot of really good personal stories getting told in a different way from what we see on Substack, give Prism and Pen a follow, and give James a follow. He does a lot of amazing writing and reporting on his own experiences as an ACT UP activist, his experience leaving the military because he was gay as a young man, raising a family with a partner of his and an adopted son. Like, he's got so much history. And he's such a fantastic writer, as well as contributing so much to the community by running things like Prism and Pen and other online groups. Blue Sky has some good community, but the admin isn't better than anywhere else. Yeah, I've definitely noticed shit gets flagged as NSFW willy-nilly. Same logic as Tumblr, it's just that they don't ban you for it. They just make it hard to see. So that's really difficult if you're a sexual content creator, if you're a sex worker, or if you're just a queer person trying to fucking share your art and find other queer people. It's really alarming. It fucking sucks. So that's it for the piece. And those are all the resources that I wanted to shout out and comments that I wanted to shout out. Does anybody have any final notes on archiving information, tips and tricks for navigating this queer kink book burning, this Libricide, this record destruction that we're presently living under. Jubilee videos be like 20 turfs and one femboy. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. I know we have a few archivists in the chat, so I wanted to give a little space for if anyone has anything to share about, here's what I do to archive things, here's what I use, here's what I recommend. Anybody who wants to share any of those victories, much appreciated. Oh, and there in the chat is a link to the Discord server. If you like these videos, if you like the chat and what people have to contribute, you might just enjoy being on the Discord server. It is a pretty autonomous running community where people talk a lot about being a spoonie, being disabled, trans stuff, sharing selfies, sharing crafts we're making, talking about food we're eating, getting into piss course on the internet, etc. Dion says, even if you can't download and archive things, going through and recording what still exists now is helpful too. Well said. What is up? What is not up? When did it get deleted? That is useful information. Because it's important to be able to point to, like, here's what tipped it off. Like, this law inspired this thing. Or the work of this advocacy group led to this effect. We've talked about archiving being really important activism in the context of the Palestinian genocide as well. Reporting on what's happening has been suppressed, and Palestinian people have done so much to document their lives, both before and after the genocide began, and anything you can do to document those things is really important, and continues to be. Like, those records are going to continue to be under threat as the state of Israel and the U.S. government and Zionist imperialists worldwide try to suppress the story of what happened. They will try to turn this into a story where we didn't know what was happening. We couldn't have done anything. Like, they will try to wash their hands of this genocide. So that's another place where archival work is really, really important. Slime Mage says the gold standard is to run file checksums, but essentially just running your digital storage devices periodically can help avoid bit rot long term. Oh, I did not know that. So I do not know what file checksums are, but that I will write that down. But if I'm understanding correctly, does that mean, like, if I have an external drive, file checksums, like plugging it in, turning it on, and using it is, like, good for it? I hope that's not a silly question. Lulafink says, if we're talking Palestine, I am dropping tirazane.com/archive. It's an archive of traditional Palestinian cross-stitch. Let's take a look at that for a second. Let's have fun. Looking at some gorgeous Palestinian cross-stitch. Oh, very cool. Oh, all kinds of different designs. Birds, lions, patterns, florals, geometrics. They're unique file fingerprints. That's what a file checksum is. Okay. I'm making my own physical cross-stitch copy of some patterns. That's amazing, Lulu. And that's such important archival work. Like, we are losing so many different arts and crafts. Oh no, did the internet shit its britches? Looks like I'm still streaming. Maybe it was just my app. So many different crafts and arts are at risk of getting extinct right now. So that's also really important to continue to document. Practices, recipes, stitching, textiles, repairs, so many different things to document. That actually reminds me, I need to hit up somebody I met at Beguiled about a leather repair. Leather repair gig. Support your artisans. Yes. Um, I wrote a little bit about archiving the digital records of Palestinian people on Morning Gaza on Google Maps. Uh, Look at what Gaza looked like on Google Maps before this genocide began. You know, look at the businesses that no longer exist, the churches, the libraries, the mosques, the universities, the museums, uh, everything, the beaches, the photos that we have of places and people that are now destroyed. Um, the more that that history is erased, the easier it will be for the imperialists to claim people were never living there. It was just it was just a terrorist cell. Nobody knew about the genocide. There was no genocide. All of these different logically inconsistent stories that'll be used to pretend that what happened didn't happen, and that we as members of the empire are not culpable for it. Slime Mage says, over time, electronics are just metals holding magnetic charges. It's not magic. It can decay slightly, and there can be little errors in those file fingerprints. Deep fried memes look like bit rot. Oh, excellent. Thank you for explaining that. Very good to know. So power it on, basically use it so that the magnetic charge stays working. Does that actually do something? Hopefully I'm understanding some of what you're saying. It really goes to speak to how archiving is a conscious, ongoing practice. That you can't just do it and think, oh, it's gone, it's done, it's there. Like, it's maintaining the records and keeping it updated and being a good steward of it. That is really important. Lost media community, please save us. Yeah, that's another great space to visit. In terms of people who are doing a lot of archival work. They found porno music. Very good. Old porn. I think probably most of us saw that one computer that somebody found at like Goodwill that was just full of like thousands and thousands of gay porn reviews, and they dumped all of it onto archive.org. Like, that's important archival work. That whole history of this guy and his meticulous porn reviewing habits would have been lost to the annals of time if not for the work of a conscientious archiver. Yes, just run it every once in a while to keep those electronic signals alive. Okay, will work. Good to know. Use your external drives. Use your backup drives, everybody. And ideally do a file checksum. Step 1, find out how to do that, which I'll do. And if you feel like linking any resources, people who are in the Discord, feel free to drop it in the Discord, any resources on archiving, spaces that you recommend, ways of file hosting that you recommend, anything like that, documentation practices. If you happen to have any of that stuff, thank you in advance. And if you're watching this on YouTube, put it in the YouTube comments as well. Just like how you have to keep the books dry and not too hot and not too cold, right? Also, scan your books, scan your magazines, your pornos, your flyers for queer raves from the early 2000s, all that stuff. If you see that stuff, archive it in some way. Beautiful. All right, my stomach is rumbling, so I'm probably going to leave it there. But thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this and contributing in the chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can hop on over to Twitch to get notifications when I go live to do one of these events. If you want to join the chat, you can read all of my writing for free at drdevonprice.substack.com. Always free, no paywall for any of that shit, and no content moderation on Substack. That's what we like about Substack. It, for all its flaws and people on there that we do not like Jesse Single, it does not censor content at this point. So people literally, like Leo Herrero, will post like things that are fully NSFW on there. He paywalls it so that it can't be found by everyone, but like people are putting smut and dick and hole and pull and everything on fucking Substack. So let's celebrate that. Waluigi Bowser Jr. says, I know this might sound like a dumb question, but how can you archive stuff on iOS without viruses and such? Because downloading apps can be a problem, like a document app along with VPN subscription. That is a higher order question than I know how to answer. But yeah, you're right. If you jailbreak a phone, uh, then and you download apps that are not official App Store things, there is more of a risk of viruses. But also, then you're not beholden to the App Store censorship. So I don't know. I would check the data hoarders subreddit or something like that. I think if you're asking how do I use my phone as an archival tool, that's that's a good question. I mean, I think you could still download things and upload them to um, things that are not Apple Cloud storage, um, screenshot things, download files, move files around. But it's definitely trickier than archiving with a computer. Many said, "Thanks for streaming. I have no complaints." Thank you. Okay, good. Nothing too bad this time. Um, Thank you everybody for being here. We have some more articles coming out soon. I'm working on something about AI that's gonna make people mad, but is still rooted in a firm ambivalence with AI. And I'm also working on adapting something on what to do if you get canceled online, how to survive, and then a companion piece, what to do if you want to cancel someone online. Two sets of tactics for internet warfare. So I'll see ya on here again soon. Let me find somebody to raid and send you to. See who's stramming right now. And thanks everybody for hanging out. I think it really does enrich the conversation to have people here and sharing what they know, even if it makes the read through a little bit more like all over the place. So far, people seem to like it. So if you're watching this on YouTube, let me know what you like, what you think. Let's see. Steph Senyati is playing. The Syntherian is playing The Sims 4. Maybe we'll go there. Let's see who else. T-Pain, Corgi Cam, Q Bunny, Wildlife Cam, Saribot, Ken Arashi. Some of these people I don't remember why I'm like who they are. So I'll send you over to the Syntherian because they're embracing the fairy life in Sims 4, which seems like a great thing for most of us to see. I love fairies. I love Sims, and I like the Syntherian. They're pretty cool. So get this raid ready to go. 15 raiders ready to go in 1 minute. All right, I'll send you on over there. Thanks for hanging out, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye.